My sister-in-law kidnapped my baby during her wedding, claiming she was helping. I pressed charges, and the truth came out in court. That was 2 months ago. Today, she's banned from seeing my family, and she's begging for forgiveness. So y'all, I never thought I'd be writing this kind of story, but here we are. 2 months ago, my world got flipped upside down at what was supposed to be a celebration. I'm talking about my sister-in-law's wedding day, the day she decided to take my 6-month-old daughter without permission and disappear for 3 hours. No cap, this really happened, and I'm still processing it all. Let me back up and give you the full picture. My husband's sister, let's call her Sarah, had always been the golden child of the family. Perfect grades, perfect job at some fancy marketing firm downtown, perfect everything. When she got engaged to this Wall Street type last year, the whole family went into overdrive planning this massive wedding. We're talking $20,000 dress, destination venue in the Hamptons, the works. Meanwhile, I had just given birth to my beautiful baby girl 6 months earlier. Being a new mom was already challenging enough. Sleepless nights, constant feedings, the whole 9 yards. But I was genuinely happy for Sarah and wanted to be there for her big day. Despite everything I had going on, the wedding planning process was intense. No joke. Sarah had these group chats going 24/7 with all the bridesmaids and family members. Every detail had to be perfect. The flowers, the music, the seating arrangements, everything was meticulously planned. I remember thinking it felt more like a military operation than a wedding celebration. What I didn't realize at the time was how much my baby's presence was bothering Sarah. She never said anything directly, but there were little comments here and there. Things like, I hope the baby doesn't cry during the ceremony, or maybe you should consider getting a babysitter for the reception. I brushed it off as pre-wedding stress, you know. Everyone gets a little crazy before their big day. The morning of the wedding arrived, and let me tell you, it was chaos from the jump. The venue was this gorgeous oceanfront property, the kind of place you see in magazines. Sarah had rented out the entire estate for the weekend, and family members were staying in various guest houses scattered around the property. I was staying in one of the smaller cottages with my husband and our daughter. The plan was simple: attend the ceremony, take some family photos, maybe stay for a bit of the reception, then head back to put the baby down for the night. Nothing complicated. The ceremony itself was beautiful. I'll give Sarah that. Everything looked perfect. The flowers, the decorations, even the weather cooperated. My daughter was an angel throughout the whole thing, barely made a peep. I was feeling pretty good about how smoothly everything was going. After the ceremony, we moved to the cocktail hour on the terrace overlooking the ocean. The photographer was doing family shots, and everyone was in high spirits. The champagne was flowing, people were laughing and catching up. It felt like a proper celebration. That's when Sarah approached me during the cocktail hour. She looked absolutely stunning in her dress, but there was something in her eyes that seemed off. She came over while I was feeding the baby and said she wanted to spend some quality time with her new niece, said it would mean the world to her to get some aunt-baby bonding time on her special day. Honestly, it seemed like a sweet gesture. Sarah had always been good with kids, and I thought maybe this was her way of showing she wanted to be part of my daughter's life. So when she offered to take the baby for a little walk around the gardens while I grabbed some food and enjoyed the party, I said, sure. Update. I handed over my baby thinking it was just aunt bonding time. Should I have trusted my gut feeling that something was off? What would you have done in my position? I specifically told Sarah to stay close to the main reception area and to bring the baby back within 30 minutes because it would be time for her next feeding. Sarah smiled and nodded, promised she'd be right back. She even took the diaper bag with her, which seemed responsible. 30 minutes passed, then 45, then an hour. I started getting that sick feeling in my stomach that every parent knows when something just doesn't feel right. I began asking around, checking with other family members if they'd seen Sarah and the baby. Nobody had seen them for over an hour. The more people I asked, the more panicked I became. My husband was trying to stay calm, suggesting maybe Sarah had taken the baby inside to change her or found a quiet spot to let her nap. But I knew something was wrong. We searched the entire venue, the gardens, the guest houses, the parking areas, everywhere. Other wedding guests started helping us look. The reception was basically on hold while everyone tried to figure out where Sarah and my baby had gone. The bride's own wedding had turned into a search party. That's when Sarah's mom pulled me aside and told me something that made my blood run cold. She said Sarah had been struggling with some personal issues lately, specifically around having children. Apparently, Sarah and her new husband had been trying to get pregnant for over a year without success. They'd been to fertility specialists, tried various treatments, and it was taking a serious emotional toll. Sarah's mom explained that seeing me with my baby had been triggering some difficult feelings for Sarah. She'd been dealing with intense jealousy and sadness around my pregnancy and motherhood. The family had been walking on eggshells around the topic, trying not to make Sarah feel worse. But here's the thing. None of this excused taking my baby without permission and disappearing. I was beyond furious at this point. We called venue security, and they started a more systematic search of the property and surrounding areas. Finally, after 3 hours of panic and searching, someone spotted Sarah's car in the parking lot of a Target about 10 miles away. When we got there, we found Sarah sitting in the baby section, holding my daughter and crying. She had apparently bought a bunch of baby clothes and toys, like she was trying to play house or something. The scene in that Target was surreal. Sarah looked up at me with tears streaming down her face and said she was just trying to help. She wanted to give me a break so I could enjoy the wedding. But she'd been sitting there for hours, just holding my baby and shopping for baby stuff she couldn't use. My husband tried to handle the situation diplomatically since it was his sister, but I was done being understanding. Taking someone's baby without permission and disappearing for 3 hours isn't helping, it's kidnapping. Plain and simple. Sarah refused to hand over my daughter at first. She kept saying she was bonding with her niece and that I was overreacting. It took my husband physically intervening to get our baby back. The whole time, Sarah was alternating between crying and getting defensive about her actions. We drove straight home that night. I couldn't even look at Sarah, let alone stay for the rest of her wedding reception. The next morning, I called his lawyer. I don't care if it was family. I don't care if it was her wedding day. What Sarah did was unacceptable and potentially dangerous. The legal consultation confirmed what I already knew. Taking someone's child without permission, even a family member, constitutes kidnapping in our state. The lawyer explained that the 3-hour time frame and the fact that she left the venue property made it a serious matter. Filing the police report was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I kept thinking about what could have happened. What if Sarah had decided to take my baby even further away? What if she'd had some kind of breakdown while driving? What if something had happened to my daughter while she was gone? The family reaction was brutal. Sarah's parents begged me not to press charges, saying it would ruin her life and career. My husband was torn between supporting me and not wanting to destroy his relationship with his sister. The pressure to drop the whole thing was intense, but I stood my ground. This wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about protecting my child and setting clear boundaries. Sarah needed to understand that her actions had serious consequences, regardless of her emotional state or personal struggles. Update. The family is pressuring me to drop the charges, saying I'm being too harsh. Sarah's fertility struggles don't excuse kidnapping, right? Am I wrong for standing firm on this? The court proceedings took about 6 weeks to resolve. Sarah initially tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that she was just being a helpful aunt. But when the prosecutor laid out the timeline and evidence, security footage showing her leaving the venue, witness statements about the 3-hour disappearance, her behavior at Target, the reality became clear. Sarah's lawyer eventually convinced her to accept a plea deal. She pled guilty to unlawful restraint of a minor and was sentenced to supervised probation, community service, and mandatory counseling. Most importantly for me, she was issued a restraining order that prevents her from coming within 500 feet of me or my daughter. The truth that came out during the court proceedings was even more disturbing than I'd imagined. Sarah had apparently been planning this for weeks. She'd researched baby care, bought supplies, even looked into what it would take to temporarily care for an infant. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment emotional breakdown. It was premeditated. The fertility issues were real, but they'd reached a point where Sarah was having fantasies about taking other people's children. She'd been seeing a therapist but hadn't been honest about the extent of her thoughts and plans. The wedding day just provided the perfect opportunity. My husband had to face some hard truths about his sister during this process. He'd always seen her as the responsible, successful one in the family. Learning that she'd been struggling this much and had done something so calculated was devastating for him. The extended family has basically split into camps. Some people understand why I pressed charges and support my decision to protect my daughter. Others think I went too far and should have handled it privately within the family. Family gatherings have been awkward, to say the least. Sarah completed her community service at a local women's shelter, which seemed fitting given what she put me through as a new mother. The mandatory counseling was probably the most important part of her sentence. She needed professional help to deal with her fertility struggles and the unhealthy thoughts she'd been having. 2 months later, here's where things stand. Sarah has been reaching out through mutual friends and family members, trying to apologize and make amends. She sent letters, asked relatives to intercede on her behalf, even had flowers delivered to my house with apology cards. Her latest attempt was having her mom call me last week. Sarah apparently wants to meet in person to apologize properly and ask for forgiveness. She claims the counseling has helped her understand how wrong her actions were, and she wants to make things right. But, honestly, I'm not interested in her apologies or explanations. What she did crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The trust is completely broken, and I don't see how it could ever be rebuilt. My priority is protecting my daughter, not managing Sarah's guilt or helping her feel better about her choices. The restraining order gives me peace of mind. Sarah can't show up at my house, can't approach me at public places, can't contact me directly. If she violates it, she goes to jail. It's that simple. My husband has slowly come to terms with the situation. It took him a while to fully grasp how serious what Sarah did really was. But seeing how it affected me and understanding the potential danger our daughter was in helped him realize that protecting our family had to come first. Some family members still try to guilt me into forgiving Sarah. They say everyone makes mistakes, that she's learned her lesson, that holding grudges isn't healthy. But this wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate choice that put my child at risk. The hardest part is that Sarah's fertility struggles are still ongoing. Part of me feels bad that she's dealing with that pain. But her inability to have children doesn't give her the right to take mine. There are healthy ways to cope with fertility issues, and kidnapping isn't one of them. I've been seeing a counselor myself to process everything that happened. The trauma of having your child disappear, even temporarily, is something that stays with you. Every time I'm out in public with my daughter, I'm hyper aware of who's around us and where she is at all times. My daughter is now 8 months old and thriving. She has no memory of what happened, obviously, but I'll never forget those 3 hours of not knowing where she was or if she was safe. That experience changed me as a mother and made me more protective than I ever thought I'd be. Update. 2 months later, Sarah is still trying to apologize through family members. She wants to meet in person to make amends. Should I give her a chance, or is protecting my daughter more important than family peace? The wedding photos from that day tell an interesting story if you know what to look for. In the early photos before Sarah took my baby, everyone looks happy and relaxed. After we found them at Target and came back, you can see the tension in everyone's faces. What should have been a joyful family celebration became the day everything fell apart. Sarah's marriage has been affected by all this too. Her new husband was horrified when he learned what had happened. From what I've heard through the family grapevine, he's been questioning whether he really knows the woman he married. The stress of the legal proceedings and counseling requirements put a strain on their relationship during what should have been their honeymoon period. I sometimes wonder if I handled everything the right way. Could I have addressed it differently? Should I have tried to work things out within the family instead of involving the courts? But then I think about those 3 hours of panic and fear, and I know I made the right choice. The thing about boundaries is that they only work if you enforce them. If I had let Sarah's actions slide because of family pressure or her personal struggles, what message would that send? That taking my child is acceptable as long as you have a good excuse? That my role as a mother is secondary to keeping family peace? My daughter's safety and well-being will always be my top priority. The restraining order stays in place, and I have no plans to lift it or allow Sarah back into our lives. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Friends and family members who weren't directly involved sometimes ask me if I think I was too harsh. They point out that Sarah didn't actually harm my daughter physically and that she was dealing with serious emotional issues, but intent matters less than impact when it comes to protecting your child. The legal system agreed with my perspective. The judge who handled Sarah's case said he'd seen too many situations where family members felt entitled to make decisions about other people's children. He noted that what Sarah did could have had serious consequences and that the restraining order was appropriate given the circumstances. I've learned a lot about myself through this whole experience. I discovered that I'm stronger than I thought and more willing to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. I also learned that being a mother means making hard choices that other people might not understand or agree with. The community service requirement in Sarah's sentence was specifically chosen to help her understand the impact of her actions. Working with women and children who'd experienced trauma was supposed to give her perspective on how her behavior affected me and my family. From what I've heard, Sarah has completed all her court requirements and is continuing with therapy voluntarily. Her counselor apparently specializes in fertility-related emotional issues and has been helping her develop healthy coping strategies. But her progress doesn't change what she did or make me feel any safer having her around my child. The financial cost of the legal proceedings was significant, but my lawyer helped me understand that some things are worth fighting for regardless of the expense. My daughter's safety and my peace of mind as her mother were worth every penny spent on legal fees and court costs. Looking back, I can see warning signs that I missed or dismissed at the time. Sarah's comments about my baby during wedding planning, her increasing emotional distance from the family, even her insistence on spending alone time with my daughter at the wedding. But hindsight is 20/20, and I couldn't have predicted she'd actually take things as far as she did. The support I received from friends and some family members helped me get through the darkest parts of this experience. Having people validate that my feelings and reactions were normal and justified meant everything when others were pressuring me to forgive and forget. My relationship with my in-laws has been permanently changed by this situation. While they love their granddaughter, they also can't fully accept that their daughter is capable of the actions she took. There's an underlying tension now that wasn't there before, and I don't think it will ever fully go away. The restraining order has been surprisingly effective at giving me peace of mind. Knowing that Sarah can't legally approach me or my daughter removes the anxiety I used to feel about running into her at family events or around town. It creates a clear, enforceable boundary that protects my family. Today, 8 months after that traumatic wedding day, my daughter and I are doing well. She's hitting all her developmental milestones, sleeping through the night, and bringing joy to every day. The experience with Sarah taught me to trust my instincts as a mother and to prioritize my child's safety above all other considerations. Sarah's attempts to make amends continue, but they don't change my position. Forgiveness might be healing, for her, but my focus is on protecting my family and moving forward. Some actions have consequences that can't be undone with apologies, no matter how sincere they might be. The legal system worked exactly as it should in this case. Sarah faced appropriate consequences for her actions, got the help she needed through mandatory counseling, and I received the protection my family deserved through the restraining order. Justice doesn't always look like what we expect, but sometimes it looks exactly like what's needed. 6 months from now, when my daughter is walking and starting to explore the world more independently, I'll still be grateful for the boundaries and protection we have in place. The restraining order doesn't expire, and I have no intention of requesting its removal. My daughter's safety will always come first, and that's exactly how it should be.